Welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next super stock, a live stream April 20th, 2021. We are back with Tetra Bio-Pharma, Dr. Guy Chamberlain, TBP, MF, TBP, and TSX. Guy, welcome back.
Well, thanks for having me back, Jack.
Guy, we're gonna. So we got for anybody that's brand new to our program, again, our live stream is all about bringing you those stocks which have 10x to 100x upside potential. We haven't had 100x so far this year. We did have a bunch of 10x's, 20x's, and even a 50x. Maybe Tetra will be our first 100 bagger. There's always a first, and we're gonna find out if that's possible, what the path to get there is. And again, for anybody that's watching, please ask your questions. These live streams, live chats are all about having your questions answered by the CEO. And again, we're focused on stocks which have that massive upside, and they have three things in common. One, they're going after massive multi-billion-dollar market opportunities. There are multiple catalysts in place to create that value, and right now they're right at that threshold of explosive growth. So with that said, Guy, I want to kind of start off with the infamous Raymond James note that's kind of back in the spotlight. I think Raymond James put out a research note about a year ago saying that your drug delivery platform, the inhaled CBD, is potentially really like an existential threat to GW Pharma. Really, it could really disrupt the market. I mean, essentially, it could disrupt the whole. I mean, that's what is it? I think they're a $5 billion market cap now, or they were
they were sold for $7.2 billion.
$7 billion. Well, now everything is discounted a little bit, so I'm marking to market. But what? So why is that note? If you can give us some background and why is that in the spotlight? Because I think it's important for investors to understand. Hey, why is this potentially, can TBP go from 60 million to 6 billion? That would essentially be that 100x. So please explain.
Yeah, I think two answers. The first one, when Raymond James made that public comment in their analytical report, it was based on us demonstrating, for example, that the inhaled CBD from our comms technology is basically 50% is delivered to the lung and it goes straight to the brain. We avoid what we call the liver first pass metabolism, which has led to the metabolite, which is linked with the liver toxicity, which kind of stop Epidiolex from going into higher doses into patients. So that was, that basically kind of triggered their interest in it. And that's key, because if you're treating epilepsy or any types of, neurological disorder, you want to get the drug as fast as you can to the brain. So obviously a 5 to 10% oral absorption versus 50% by inhalation was a key fact that we could achieve much higher doses and faster in patients. But when he passed that comment, it was based on our human metabolism data, where we showed a very significant low level of the metabolite versus the oral route. And that's key clinically, because if I have higher absorption and a lower metabolite, I have a much larger, safety margin to increase the dose to patients, especially when a patient doesn't respond anymore. I think the question why it came back this week was yesterday we did a Twitter where we basically revealed that we were giving our COM CBD drug, which is this one that people are referring to a university that got authorized a clinical trial based on our licenses for manufacturing it. But now it shows the market that this is not just a clinical research thing. We're actually able to manufacture it. We actually gave it to a university in exchange for the human data. So they'll share with us their human data for our regulatory file. So it was, economically it doesn't cost anything. We have the drug, but we're showing basically the market now that we can actually make this. So yes, it does become a threat.
Okay, so the inhaled CBD. Okay, so again, just to recap for anybody that's new, which market opportunities are you addressing, and how far along are you to get to market?
Yeah, our interest has always been we've been after the pain market. That's been ours. So we're not into the neurological market, but obviously any company that has interest in the neurological market, I mean, we're always open to partnerships and that. But I mean, ours has been really focusing on, tackling the opioid reduction market. I think that is really a major unmet medical need. And for us, it's been critical to understand how the inhaled CBD basically works on the brain. We need to explain that to the FDA because we give it in combination with THC. As you know, we're the only company right now doing clinical trials for drug registration with both THC and CBD in the United States.
So basically, essentially, your platform really, the drug is going to be an alternative to morphine.
Correct. We're hoping to show when we start our Reborn trial that we're going to be superior in time to relief versus obviously fast-acting morphine.
Okay, and now in terms of would let's say a GW or somebody else can they let's say maybe license your inhaled delivery platform for for their epilepsy drug?
Sure. I mean, we're open to any licensing of our technology.
Or anybody else. I'm just saying anybody.
Anybody else. Anybody who's interested in obviously going after this market. Because, I mean, I believe their exclusivity runs out in 2023. New clinical trials performed with an inhalation drug. Certainly we would get what's authorized in the regulations for marketing exclusivity, but we also have patents on what's inhaled in the whole process. And we're also working on a fingerprint of what enters the body through this to create more intellectual property.
Okay, so let's so this is back. It's kind of getting back kind of into the spotlight here. The Raymond James, and again, let's just kind of recap the big markets that you're going after. In other words, the near term, because I think it's really important for investors to understand it. Where TBP right now is essentially you're saying a year out from bringing to market. Two major drugs which are addressing again, multi-billion-dollar opportunities, and we're essentially the path to market. I mean, the runway is about let's say mid 2022, a year from now, roughly.
Yeah, I mean, one thing for sure before that, I think the moment we get our Reborn trial working head-to-head against morphine, keep in mind that if we do show our superiority, never mind going to the market, but the moment we get those results and we publish them, that's a game changer. I mean, that's coming up. The other thing that people need to understand, we're in the prescription drug market, like GW Pharma. But out there are many manufacturers of cannabis going after the wellness market. Even in South America, people are, trying to, under their medical cannabis regulations, trying to commercialize various products, and they need clinical evidence. Well, we're not in those markets. So, we're certainly very active in trying to develop partnerships, which would allow us to bring, revenues earlier and offset, our needs for raising money. But the inhaled CBD is a great example. In other countries, if it's an isolate, for example, a pure isolate, 98% to 99%, you could basically bring this product straight to the market and commercialize it. We have the clinical data. Clearly, we're going to have a lot more data now with that relationship with the university. And more importantly, we manufacture it under our GMP licenses that were granted by Health Canada.
Okay, Guy, right after you, we're going to have one of your big shareholders on because I want to get his. Oh. I spoke to him. I want to get his perspective. Why did he invest? I mean, this guy's a very, very sophisticated investor, and he's had some big wins in the microcap space across different sectors. And one of the things we talked about is which I think investors need to understand. Let's say with a biotech, any kind of pharma stock, even sure, like the path to the revenues could be a year out. You're gonna be in the market a year, maybe let's say 18 months out, but the time to get in is people should not be waiting if they expect this to be a 100 bagger once the product is in the market. They shouldn't be waiting 12 months because by then the stock would be a lot higher. There is a lot of catalysts, which right now there's kind of built-in catalysts that are kind of like under the surface, almost like icebergs, which potentially can ignite a big an increase in value of the stock. I was going to say a big run in the stock. Let's just say a complete reevaluation in the stock, like you just mentioned, a few of these items. But these things are not. I think these kind of catalysts. It's not like there is a timetable where all of a sudden it goes off and then, the stock goes to, $2. I mean, it could happen. The market always is forward looking. So in theory, these things could start, I don't know, 3 o'clock this afternoon or whatever, or next week you might have some news. What are some? Let's kind of go through maybe a couple of the potential catalysts. Maybe we'll go kind of down the list. I just want to kind of get that perspective from you. Things which could, really ignite a reevaluation of the stock.
Yeah, certainly when we get the ARDS drug, the one for COVID, into patients or humans, when that message comes out, I think that's going to spark a lot of interest on the market, especially because our drug obviously is a lot safer than dexamethasone. And we have over 12 years of research with it in various conditions of sepsis. And sepsis is a major market, even in the United States. I mean, prior to COVID, 1 out of 3 patients that are hospitalized die from sepsis. And it's a huge complication with some of the immune cancer therapies in patients because they create kind of a cytokine storm. Well, you need to manage that so that the oncologist can take care of his patients. So a drug like the ARDS-003 has a major potential on the market. So as soon as we get into humans, I think that's also kind of tipping everything in our favor. And like I said, if we beat morphine, I would say tie your shoes because we're going to take off.
Okay. Now, in terms of, back to the sepsis, in other words, first you want to get approval for for COVID, right? Because that's kind of an easy thing, and then use that to kind of parlay that into as a treatment for sepsis.
I mean, it's easy if you have a repurposed drug, like the generic drugs that have been around for 30 years. The FDA basically, just reviews your clinical protocol, be sure your stopping rule and your safety for patients is adequate. With a new drug like ours that's never been in humans, the regulator, that's what we've been doing. They have to review in detail all of our 20 reports. So we did everything that's required. There's no difference between our ARDS-003 drug and any other synthetic prescription drug made by a big pharma, in terms of data. We're the same as they are. So we're nothing is, how could I say, easy for us because we have to prove we are safe. Whereas the generic 30-year drug, everybody knows it's, kind of safe type of thing. So we had a major bar in front of us that we had to cross, just like every other new drug does. But we've achieved it now. But our protection on the market is major. Nobody's going to be able to copy us if we do work and get approval. Whereas the repurposed drugs that are out there, yeah, dexamethasone may work, but any generic company can sell it.
Okay, so right now you have so you have two things which have that kind of near term potential for getting onto the market near term. You have potentially the pain relief market you're addressing, which is the morphine alternative, potentially sepsis.
Sepsis, which is the same one as the COVID, yes.
Okay, and okay, and now this week you actually had a couple pieces of news. You were just, because you have really I think what people need to understand is with Tetra you really have again there is multiple catalysts in place to ignite that value, because you kind of have a pretty broad portfolio of intellectual property. Like you just got a new patent for the interstitial cystitis, which is a significant market opportunity. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean that's a very painful condition when women get it. It's mainly a condition that we see in women. I guess the gold standard has been around for ages. It doesn't really work. There's been really nothing new coming out in this market. And for us, what was really key is not only did we get the patent granted, but we've been working with, everybody knows Thorne Research. That's through our CB2 therapeutics subsidiary. Well, Thorne Research, obviously being a very well-established US commercial firm that sells let's say natural-based products that are evidence-based to physicians and direct-to-consumer. So obviously they're going to be developing it to commercialize it for us. So for us, getting a US granted patent is the perfect protection that a firm like Thorne Research will need.
Okay. Okay. So we get a bunch of. I mean, really, it's like there's really like right now with TBP, there's just so many catalysts, which you have this kind of right now you have a real pipeline of news flow that I think we're going to start seeing. So I kind of find it amazing that the market cap is still only like $60 million, whereas essentially the for let's say somebody like a GW Farm or somebody like that, maybe it's Jazz that owns GW now. I mean, somebody like that, why wouldn't they pay I don't know, let's say $1 billion for TBP?
Certainly, when you look at our intellectual property, we have a lot of U.S. granted patents in cannabinoids. So we have a very solid protection in the ophthalmic market. That's pain and obviously inflammation. The whole immunomodulator now is ours as well. Now interstitial cystitis. We have patents in pain and inflammation as well by inhalation. So we have a lot of intellectual property compared to GW. So we're in a great position to at least be the next GW. But yeah, you're correct. The market doesn't seem to recognize that.
Who do you think? So in terms of which I don't know. This is I don't want to like kind of speculate, but why not? Which pharma companies out there do you think would be interested in let's say buying Tetra at I don't know, $3-4 a share?
$3-4 a share. I'd say all of those who are into the cancer immunological therapies that are facing the issues like the CAR T cells, where they're facing the issues of people dying from that hyperinflammation of the cytokines, similar to COVID. But they're all in the COVID space right now, trying to find therapies for treating. Let's keep in mind the vaccines will work, but they're not going to work on 100% of people. And it's not just COVID that causes the acute respiratory distress. It's many viruses, even influenza itself. So, this space of treating patients is not going to go away. And what we don't seem to understand or get right is, we're in the third wave here now in Canada. We're again starting to put restrictions on people. And it's not because things are, how could I say, are going well. Yeah, we're vaccinating people, but what causes the restrictions is we overflow our ICU units. Yet we're not investing in therapeutics like we have. If we had great therapeutics and we could keep people out of ICU by preventing the acute respiratory distress, we could more easily open our economy. So all the big pharmas have been after this. A lot of them have failed in trials. So yeah, the day we get into the clinic, I think they're all going to have a very serious look at Tetra.
But we're not saying that Tetra is for sale. I'm just bringing it up because
but we're not going to sell it ourselves.
No.
We're going to go after a license agreement.
Right. No, just from the investor's perspective, you always kind of want to look at it. Okay, here's kind of the comps. Here's what the thing is worth, really. The intrinsic value. I'm trying to like really kind of articulate kind of the intrinsic value that investors can understand, like as opposed to like, okay, here's what a strategic buyer would pay for Tetra's portfolio.
TRBS-003 drug. If you're a big pharma, this is your market. This is the type of drug you can manufacture and you can make revenues on. And they know a company like Tetra is not going to sell it globally. That's not our game. We're a drug developer. We'll take it, to the end of phase 3 type of thing, and then hopefully get a very nice commercial deal with upfronts, royalty, even milestone royalty payments, the classic that are seen in industry with big pharma. So yeah, there is a huge value of it.
But the plan really is to bring the drugs to market yourself, in 2020 next year, basically next year, get them to market.
For us, our model is through partnerships or license agreements with big pharma. Because we don't have the structure to bring a drug to the market, commercially and distribute and sell it globally. That's for sure.
Okay, so basically, I guess Ramsey here is asking essentially what I've been trying to articulate, not as successfully as Ramsey. It's just got right to the bottom line. We talked about it a little bit before, but let's say again, what would you say is the value of of the IP right now, conservatively, like the whole portfolio of
Yeah,
IP?
conservatively, I mean, for sure, I'll look at again at GW Pharma. GW Pharma is the first in the cannabinoid space. Its IP, is for a very rare disease. I'm in the pain market. It's not a rare disease. I don't have less than 200,000 patients suffering from opioid, that need opioid reduction type of therapies. I mean, the pain market is alone a $5 billion market. If I just take even the 2% segment of that to start, I mean, that's huge. But the potential of the drug, like I said, is in all inflammatory conditions. So our IP touches all the ophthalmic market. It touches the pain market by inhalation, and we're touching now the whole immunomodulatory market for conditions like sepsis. So our potential value of IP is huge. I couldn't even put a value to it because it's so major. But my only comparable is GW's valuation for Epidiolex. That's just a rare disease of less than 200,000 patients in the U.S.
It's actually it's kind of interesting again because they're addressing a market with a couple 100,000 patients. You're addressing a market with million. I mean, it's a much bigger market opportunity. I mean, essentially, I think we talked about the markets, the total markets you're addressing. That next year, there's the 2 drugs that you expect to be on the market next year. I mean, the addressable market opportunity is like 20 billion plus.
Oh yeah, easily.
So essentially the stock is 20 billion plus. I mean, the stock is what 300 million shares out roughly, approximately.
Correct.
300 million. So am I doing the math? That's like $20 a share?
Yeah, that'll make more sense.
If I did 6 billion, if I did the GW thing, right? I mean, essentially,
yeah.
I mean, if you were valued like a GW, the stock would be $20 a share.
Correct. If you look at all the clinical trials we've completed, and obviously those that are ongoing now, those are going to be going for sure. Our share price is way too low for where we're at and what we have in terms of assets. That's clear. Okay.
I'm going to discount the 20 because it sounds. So let's say it's even $10. Here's what I'm trying to say. Like, what is it? This is the thing I kind of find frustrating. Maybe I'm sure you're more frustrated. Is that what is it that you think that the market, investors do not understand about TBP? What is it that they don't understand right now? That if they did understand it, the stock would be $10. Like, what is the thing that we have to explain? Like, what is it? Are we like?
Yeah, I mean, what they really don't understand is what it takes to bring actually a new drug to the market. The complexity, the hurdles, just like when we got our GMP licenses, our infamous Dell, and our news releases, people were kind of like, okay, they got their Dell. But if I didn't have a Dell, I couldn't be doing a clinical trial. The only reason that university center was actually able to get into the clinic with CBD is because I had my Dell. If I can't manufacture the drug, I can't go into the clinic. And even, I think last week in the media here, I think on CBC News, there was, I think it was McMaster University that was basically complaining how Health Canada has a higher bar to enter the clinic with a cannabinoid drug than they do with a normal drug. And, so if you don't have these licenses, you can't get into the clinic, and that stopped the growth of, say, medical research in universities with cannabinoids. So for us, these are major successes. But the same thing, I had to do 20 toxicology studies to bring our cannabinoid into COVID patients. The repurposed drugs just took it off the shelf, and a generic, 30-year drug that has no patents protecting it, and wham, the market gets all excited. I've achieved major milestones, but they don't understand that. They don't see what those, let's say, leaps are that we take. And we've taken some major leaps in 2020. Went from a drug that was not at all, manufactured under GMPs for humans, our, ARDS 003, to having it in animals in the end of the last quarter, and now ready for human trials. Then it convinced the FDA that this new drug, never been in humans, is safe to give, and we just did that. We just announced that to the market. But each time, those are major steps we take, but our share price is not reflected. Okay.
Let's open up for some audience questions. Ramsey's back with another question. What competition is there that you're concerned about, if any?
Actually, we're not really concerned about competitors when we have solid intellectual property on our drugs. So that's one area that they would be infringing on our patents. And two, what we're doing is very, very complex because we're not just working under the Food and Drug Act. We work with the DEA, so we have to get licenses there. So unless you have a very, very solid regulatory basis as a company, you're not going to be able to compete and come and operate in our, I gotta say, in our necks of the woods, because it's very, very tough.
Okay. Let's see. We have some other questions, I believe. No, not yet. Okay. So Guy, okay, in terms of what else do you have like right now, like that investors could look forward to in terms of news flow, in terms of any other clinical results we could be looking at? What else?
Well, our Reduvo. I think we just announced to the market that we submitted our response to Health Canada's screening deficiency notice that had come in. So basically, we passed our drug establishment license as a pharmaceutical distributor. Remember when I was last time on the show, you asked me what was left to be able to get that drug approval as a first THC approved prescription drug in Canada. Well, one of them is gone now. So we did get that drug establishment license. The only one that's left now is the scientific review of the drug. Keep in mind, this is a THC, kind of encapsulated oil prescription drug. So the scientific review of a drug that's already approved by the FDA should be relatively low risk. So people should be expecting, obviously, that Tetra will have a first prescription drug approved by Health Canada sometime later this year.
Okay, and just to recap, what market Reduvo is addressing?
Here in Canada, it's an 80 million market potential.
Okay. So essentially this year, and this is again just one of the drugs in your portfolio. Okay, and that could be on the market again sometime early next year then.
No, conservatively it would be end of this year. It would get its approval, so probably conservatively launched in the Q4 this year, or at the latest in the very negative view. At the latest early Q1 of next year. That's the worst case scenario.
Okay, so potentially Q4.
Q4 this year is what we're still predicting. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
We've been on time with the regulator. So.
Okay. Okay. So we got a question from Ross coming in. I guess he's asking about burn rate. You have enough capital on hand to meet kind of your needs for the next 6 months, 9 months.
So we just did the last raise, so we kind of showed them how much obviously we would be when we'd have to come back out and do a raise. That's part of our business. We're trying to achieve some significant milestones before coming back up, like any biotech. That's critical. We certainly want it to be recognized, so the share price obviously helps us do a raise. In terms of the actual, I saw the question, how much cash? That's something we're not allowed to answer. They have to wait for the MD&A to come out and the quarterlies. So I'm not allowed to comment on the cash position.
The actual cash. You mean the actual? Yeah, I guess. Okay. Okay, but you just closed a big financing. Just what is last month? Right?
Yeah, we closed the 13 million. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. Okay. All right. So it really is. Just like everything is kind of lined up here for TBP.
Yes.
This looks like kind of a breakout year. Okay. Okay. So in terms of next on the horizon, I'm just, Guy, I'm just trying to like extract the catalyst. Like what is there that the market is missing that could really ignite that stock? Is it what are the news flow? What is it that the market needs to get so that to close that gap? Because essentially, the stock should be at least a couple of dollars right now.
Oh yeah.
Just based on, just based on where you are, how far along you are, and again, the market opportunity you're addressing, that whole calculation, the present value, et cetera, et cetera. It should be at least a couple dollars right now.
Oh, yeah. With the Reborn trial that was just approved, we already had, the Plenitude. So we have now 2 phase 2 trials approved in the US. The share price has not followed to each one of those. We're the most advanced in inhaled cannabinoid research, if not the only one doing what we're doing. So, I mean, I can't explain why it's not reflected. And now our ARDS, for sure, everybody's waiting to see when the FDA is going to give the final green light to actually inject it in people's arms. But when that comes, hopefully we will see the bounce. But I mean, we're still behind based on the Reborn and the Plenitude trial that should be reflected in our share price.
Okay. Okay. So let's kind of recap. Hang on, Lisa. Do we have a question here? Okay. Oh, here, Ramsey asked, are you looking at? We talked about potentially a major pharma company buying you, but are you looking at any acquiring any IP or any other opportunities that you would be potentially buying?
In terms of IP, we have what we need right now. I mean, certainly, but we're always looking. That's for sure. I mean, growth is there. We like to be able to ensure, we're well protected. So that's something we always do research on to be sure that we have no patents that we infringe, and we have freedom to operate. I can tell you there are some companies out there that are not in that position. So we're in a great position with our intellectual property.
Okay. So Guy, last question here, in terms of what can investors expect in the next 30 days? What are any other major milestones that you have coming up to keep an eye on?
Yeah, I think it'll be I'll be waiting to see what happens with the COVID trials.
Okay.
That's for sure. Everybody's going to want to know where are we and when are we going to do things. I can't give them obviously any guidance, but I'm sure they're all sitting on the edge of their seat just waiting for when we will file and when we will let them know that we filed, or they get a surprise and it's the answer that's back type of thing. So that's typical in a pharma. We don't announce those things. We wait till the verdicts. That's one. And two, obviously, when the Reborn trial, we get it up and running, I think everybody's waiting for that one. So am I. I mean, I'm eager to be in the patient head-to-head against morphine. I do want to beat it. I do want to see that success. I mean, we need that success.
Okay. And I think you mentioned in terms of for the sepsis, for both for the sepsis and the morphine thing, the trial should be relatively simple.
It is, yes.
So it's it shouldn't be, so the pathways, it should be pretty easy. Okay. So there's definitely things, I think definitely this is, there's things to keep an eye on for TBP the next 30 days. That's right. Important. So we're kind of at that inflection point right now, maybe, in terms of the valuation.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So Guy, on that note, I want to thank you, and we'll look forward to having you back when you have the next piece of news. And now I'm going
to be here.
Okay, and I'm waiting now for one of your big shareholders to come on. He's going to tell us his perspective. So
yeah, I have to sign off and go listen.
Exactly, Guy. We'll see you. We'll see you hopefully in the next few weeks.
All right. Thank you very much, Jack.
Okay, so let's get ready for our special guest. Here we go. Hang on a second. It's okay. Ah, there he is. He was waiting in the wings here. Sean, can you hear me? Sean, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hi, Jack. Sure. How are you?
Okay, good.
I can.
Okay. Oh, okay. You can hear me okay, yeah?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Yeah, make sure you close out any
Hey, Jack, I can hear you.
This is much better. Okay.
There you go.
Fantastic. All right. So Sean, let's nobody. I don't think a lot of people know who you are. I mean, we should put your full name in the little thing there. So it's Sean. So it's Sean Black.
Yes.
Sean, you're one of the big, basically one of the major investors in TBP right now, right?
I am today. Yes.
And you're actually, turns out, and we just met for the first time, online, a few hours ago. And it turns out you're also a major shareholder in one of our other companies, which is a Skylight.
Yes, yes. I've been behind Brad for the last 3-4 years. I had a great journey with him, and one of the CEOs I support for sure.
Okay, and I think, and the thing is, with Skylight, actually, you're in I mean, like you got in really early on. I mean, so you've had some major wins. Like, I mean, over, I would say over 20x in the
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was an interesting journey with Brad. He was a private company, with intentions of going public. He was out there getting some support, and my business partner and I were lucky enough to meet him and enter at that time. We did watch him go from say 50 cents a share down to 6-7 cents a share. I was lucky enough to be on the phone with Brad and him trying to figure it out and saying what the heck is going on. And it reminds me a little bit of Tetra right now. Brad did figure it out though. He really pivoted the business, turned it around, and took it from I think about 6.5 cents all the way up to $1.90. And I think with his pending uplisting to the NASDAQ over the next year or two, I think Brad's going to return substantially more to shareholders in the next 12, 24 months.
So we're going to talk about TBP. I want to find out, why you invested in TBP. Before we get into TBP, I want to kind of understand a little bit about kind of your investment philosophy, like your business background, which I think is very interesting, because essentially, I mean, you're really an operator. You're like an operations guy. You work in a very, very competitive, difficult industry, which is the restaurant industry.
It is. It's,
so before I want to, I think the sound is a little muffled. Do you want to try without the? Or you want to try without the what do you do?
Okay, go right ahead. Does that work better?
Hang on. Now I'm getting feedback.
All right.
Again?
You got feedback right now?
It's a little bit. There's a little bit of. I want to make sure you have. Maybe you want to turn down the volume on the computer, or we need to have perfect sound because we're going to get these words of wisdom here.
How does that work?
There's a little bit of like static coming in. I don't know why.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay, maybe we're back. Maybe we're better with the. Hang on, let's try that.
Tell me if that works.
Okay.
All right, we're plugged back in.
Okay, this is better actually.
Okay,
this is better. Okay, so Sean, tell us kind of a little bit about your business background.
All right. Well, my background, I'm actually originally born in Ottawa but grew up in Quebec, so I got a little bit of a connection with Guy and his background from Tetra. Got in the restaurant business, started when I was 14, grew it, met my two current business partners. We launched a brand across Canada, grew it from there, started second one, third one, fourth one. Eventually we did exit them. As part of my time, I joined a public company, MTY out of Montreal, who acquired our company. Got the experience on the public markets, what it's like. Once my time was done there, I was lucky enough to rejoin my two business partners and again accelerate growth in our current brands across Canada.
How many restaurants do you operate right now?
Today, just over 40 at current time. Previously, we were about 350.
350 restaurants.
Yes,
it's a lot of restaurants. Okay.
Yeah.
Which you want to give us some names in case anybody.
Originally, we started Extreme Pita, and then we did Mucho Burrito and Pure Blends. Currently, we're partners and then operators of a few brands: Burgers Priest, Fresh, Via Chivo, and Bangkok Brewery. So 4 concepts that are currently across Canada. Before they were global, we had them internationally from Australia to the Middle East to the United States. They were truly global brands. It was great. And so it's been a great journey. And it opened up doors for me to meet people like Guy and find something I certainly believe in and find a CEO that probably needed, some support, some guidance, and, and hopefully help him reach goals that we all believe he can.
Okay, because Sean, I mean, the reason I kind of want to start off with I start off with your business background is because again, the restaurant business is one of the most like kind of difficult industries out there because there's just so many things you need to get right. It's very operationally intensive. I don't think there's anything more operationally intensive than the food and beverage business.
Operations are tough, but
Unless
also,
you're talking about
also identifying
healthcare.
absolutely, but also identifying the right brand at the right time. The last thing you want to be doing is selling something that people just don't want.
Okay.
So identifying a product or an opportunity, I guess, is something that my two business partners and I have been very fortunate with.
Okay. So, but in terms of as an investor, because you're speaking from the investor perspective, I mean, you're involved with a couple of different companies. Explain first of all, like, your investment philosophy, and then we'll get into why you invested in TBP. And because I think kind of your investment thesis on TBP is it's really I think it's very, very interesting. And I mean, the numbers you're talking about are like pretty impressive. So let's start with that. Let's what do you look for when you invest in I mean, are you primarily in the micro cap space, or like what's your
I've been over the number of years I've been all across the board. Definitely early stage startup is something that I understand and appreciate. I understand what those operators go through, and when you find something or a product and you feel there's a definite need for it. I had the fortune one time to sit down and listen to a conversation with Chip Wilson. And he told me the 3-time rule. Chip Wilson founded Lululemon, and he told me, he often listens to people, and if he short period of time he hears 3 times people that are influencers in the space that there's a need, he starts to focus on it. And that's exactly how he discovered Lululemon. And he says they won't all be as big a success as Lululemon, obviously, but finding that, because he heard multiple people coming into his snowboard and ski shop and shop in Kitsilano saying that they were they always smelled after working out, and they needed so he developed a active sports garment that retained the the moisture and the odor. And he goes, actually it was his wife at the time who made it look great on people, but Chip had the idea, and it was all because of hearing his customers giving him feedback that they needed a product. They want to go for lunch, they want to do something after skiing. They didn't want to have an odor. So that's exactly how Lululemon was born. And I think in my career, if you look at Mucho Burrito, when we started that in Canada, there was a real void in the marketplace. There was no current leader in fresh Mexican. And in the United States, we would travel a lot as we were growing Extreme Pita. We'd get off the plane. The first thing we would go do is, punch into our, in our Hertz Never Lost burritos. And we would literally travel around trying to find a burrito shop. And we tried for a number of years to get people to come to Canada, reach out to Chipotle, reach out to Qdoba, other guys. None of them had any interest. They were all, thought Canada was a very foreign country that they weren't that familiar with coming to. And there was just no need. So we launched that brand and had great success. And the same thing when we the burger category was my first experience on a 3-time rule. Put that to work, and we partnered up with Shot Marderosian, the gentleman who had started Burgers Priest out of Toronto. Same thing on the vegan vegetarian side when we had an opportunity to work with Ruth and her team at Fresh. Same concept for Italian and Thai. So those have been restaurant business for sure has been very good to me. Learned a lot for sure, as you said, cut my teeth on a lot of things out there. And then since put some of that time and effort into some other investments, and that's what my.
How did you get involved? Okay, so let's get into like Tetra. How did you get involved with Tetra? What was it that got your attention? Like, I mean, I knew
one of the co-founders. Actually, we grew up in the same small town. And once I knew his name was connected with it, I started doing some, a little bit of homework, a little digging. Had an opportunity to speak to him and understand, what they were after and the challenges they were facing. And then, at some point, I, had a small position. Then I ended up meeting Guy and really started to understand the story, because Guy is I'm going to say a very complex and very intelligent individual. And every time you speak with him and you peel back a layer of the onion, you start to realize that there's something very real there. There's a great passion to help people. He doesn't speak about it very often, but his wife, working in the healthcare industry as well, she sees a lot of people on the other side, the palliative care, and so I think he undermentions it as much as I underemphasizes it. And he really cares about people that have cancer and the pain they go through, and he wants to help people. So that was the first indicator for me when I met Guy that was an opportunity. Once I realized, in my opinion, what I thought he had, first thing I did was reach out to some very prominent people in the business that I've had the good fortune to meet over the years, and ask them and had them speak with Guy and some of the larger CEOs in Canada. And every single one of them that came back after doing some due diligence on Guy and on Tetra said, there's a real opportunity here. There's a real potential to make a difference, and there's a potential to make an incredible amount of money if this any one of these trials that he's working on proves to be successful. You don't just get to take on opioids or morphine or indications like pain or indications like sepsis. I don't think anybody has a clue today, typically, that invests in Tetra, how close they are on some of these things, and how much they could change the game for people. I have watched, other people I know, experience sepsis, have a newborn child going through major surgery. Those are the very real things that people are experiencing. And Guy, with best of intentions, is trying to find an alternative. And I think if we can find something that's safer and that provides faster pain relief, why wouldn't we want to explore it? Why wouldn't you want to support it? Because I think people out there today are, literally dying for other alternatives.
So let's kind of talk about, so the thesis is your target. I mean, before we were speaking earlier, what's your target on TBP?
Personal share price?
No, what's your target on TBP? Where do you think the stock can go?
I've had this conversation with a number of people, and someone I respect very much on the pharma side said to me, Sean, if they are able to deliver a therapeutic or an antiviral for sepsis, they would have a unicorn on their hands. He said they would have what he believes is one of the most valuable drugs in the world. So that's one of their pieces of the portfolio. So when I look at that and I see the share price, and I look back at the history of Tetra and realize they've invested about 130 million so far, total R&D, total spend. Where you compare it to, I believe it's about 800 million that GW Pharma has spent to date, and Tetra has gotten there in about half the time that GW Pharma has. And realizing how close they are to some major catalysts, you realize that so Tetra gets a lot of heat for how they spend money and time, but unfortunately in this process it's a long journey on pharma, and not many drugs make it. They're at a point now where they have multiple that could make it, and I believe as they cross a few of these next milestones, they will attract outside capital. They will attract a JV or a suitor. I think if any one of these are remotely successful, Guy's number one threat to Tetra today is a hostile bid. I really think, based on their market cap today, somebody could buy them and bury them and pay 200, 300, 400, 500 million dollars. It'd be a rounding error for GW Pharma to buy this company and not put in jeopardy a deal with, say, someone like Jazz. Why would Jazz want to, you either license their product or bury their product? That's what I would do if I was Jazz. I really would, because you can't have somebody as big as Raymond James coming out and saying you're an existential threat to them. That you can provide children and people around the world potentially a safer delivery method for them, avoid what they call first pass metabolism, which is through the liver, which is very damaging. It has the potential to be very damaging with high dosage over time. So you can take a much lower dose, deliver quicker pain relief or quicker relief to a seizure, and also at a substantially lower cost, because when you need a lower dose of CBD, you also use an incredibly a lower amount. Lower dose is a lot less money. So you can reduce the cost of medication to people around the world with what he has developed. So in my mind, that is a priority, what they're working on. And if you can help people that have cancer, move through the process and reduce their pain and deliver them quicker pain, we all need to do that.
Okay, so that's okay. So there's a couple of, I mean, there's like, if you had to say like, okay, top 3 reasons why investors should consider TBP. So one of these is kind of like this, this kind of, it's a very attractive target for a strategic investor or somebody like, again, like a Jazz or somebody would want to protect their, their investment that they made in the GW or something like that. And even, you said 300 million, whatever it is. I mean, that's essentially like it's a rounding error. That would be, 5x from here. I mean, that would make it a, $1 stock. But
yeah, exactly. And I think if you look at, use the LP cannabis space. At one point in time, I'm going to say Bruce Linton was one of the first ones to bring in a major player and bring in a beverage company to partner with him. Since then, there's been a number more that have joined, join the space. Yes, Jazz is the first one to be a major pharma, join a cannabinoid company, make a major investment in the space, but they won't be the last, for sure. And if you look at, in my opinion, the addressable market that Tetra has, the depth of their pipeline, they actually, in my opinion, have a higher valuation on their pipeline and what they have than what GW does. And as Guy mentioned, the Tetra is sitting at $60 million market cap as an example. GW sold for $7.2 billion USD. They're coming off patent in a couple of years. It's their main product, and just like any other drug company, you've got to continue to fill the pipeline. So I think, Jazz won't be done for sure, and other companies out there as well. So that's where I think he has an opportunity as a JV to monetize some of the assets or through M&A for sure. As he mentioned, I don't believe they will be the ones to take him to the finish line. They will bring in a partner, whether it's on pharma or on the cannabis space.
But basically, the upside is, if you use the GW Pharma as a reference point, the upside is 100x. Essentially, if that was $6 billion, it's 100x for Tetra.
And I think that would be small. I think that's aiming low of what they could be worth actually, because the sepsis drug alone, strip everything else that they have away. If they are successful with sepsis, it's worth way more than GW Pharma is today. It would be that would be more more value to a Novartis, a Takeda, one of the larger players out there. I think that would be much bigger than Jazz and much bigger than GW is today. Jazz saw that. From what I've read, some of their pipeline was slowing down. They had a couple of trials that didn't, I think, go as well. As stuff comes off patent, they needed to expand and go into other avenues of revenue. GW was that for them. So I think there's a real opportunity here, and I think if these guys are able to execute over the next 3 to 9 months, I think they will enter some of those spaces where they have a chance to monetize some of their assets.
So basically you think, so in other words, if we're talking about the same numbers as that GW comp, it's $20 plus on the stock. Mm-hmm. Do you see, like, right now, is this like, are we kind of at from your perspective, like what's, because again, a lot of investors probably watching this saying, okay, well, I'm going to wait till they get approval of this or that, So like, when is the stock? When do you think the stock is actually going to start moving? Like, when is going to be that?
Two things. I'll look at you look at the quality of some of the investors that have come in recently. Some founders of some other major corporations. They've got a chance to meet Guy and spend some time with him, understand his vision and where he's going. They didn't put money in by accident, and I think this is one of those stocks that unfortunately it will move some. It may move a little more if more people are anticipating a deal. But I also believe it's one of those ones that you wake up in the morning and you see it was sold. Just like GW. GW was, I think, trading about $120 a share, roughly 120, 140, and you wake up the next morning and it was sold for $225 a share or $220 a share cash. You didn't get to participate in that 100% upside because it was sold the next morning. The people that were out. The people that were in, got an incredible payday. And the interesting part about the entire GW deal is they've had shareholders now start a class action lawsuit believing that they're undersold. They believe it should be about $500 to $550 a share is what GW should be sold for. So they're actually trying to block the sale of GW to Jazz. So Jazz is, and GW is having to deal with that right now with some major shareholders out in New York trying to slow it down and see if there's a better offer, obviously, or they can get more money because they believe that they undersold the asset. So if they believe it's worth more than double what it's sold for, so probably $15 billion USD. I don't know, Tetra at 60 million. Like I said, it is a rounding error. And I do believe that it'll be part of something at some point. So that's why I think he's, a great one to bet on. He's not going anywhere. He's heavily incented on his comp plan by his board and his team. and they got some really good people, and I think they got some excellent shareholders that have been around for a long time. Some are new, some are old. But give them 3 to 6 months and see if he moves it forward. I did hear it from somebody that on the spoke with a very senior analyst, and he said the moment that he sees Tetra put a needle in someone's arm, they're going to get very interested, because they will be the first company that I've ever heard of that's ever injected a CBD product, that's able, first of all, that's ever stabilized one in a soluble form and then injected into someone's arm. Nobody has ever done that in the world. So he's about to do something that's never been done. His head-to-head trial. I don't think many pharma companies really want Guy to be competing with them with morphine, with a easier to deliver product, safer product around the world. He's on the verge of doing that. But that's material to any investor and any patient. Then you take in what he says he's demonstrated in a deal that he did with Canopy, which they've licensed the Storz and Bickel product to deliver, called the Mighty Medic, but to deliver a safer version of CBD or THC to patients via inhalation. So I think what he's sitting on is absolutely incredible. I think that's where GW, there's a reason why they were called an existential threat to GW. And I do believe, I'm personally watching for him to file paperwork, move forward with FDA, and try and do a head-to-head trial against, using the results of GW and doing a head-to-head trial against Epidiolex and see if they can deliver a safer, quicker method. So if he moves against morphine, he moves against Epidiolex, and then provides his drug through his ARDS program. I think that's pretty incredible. You're talking about game-changing drugs, and a lot of people don't give him credit. But the gentleman that he's working with on ARDS, he works at George Mason University. He was the former deputy director of NIH. There's no bigger, platform or, organization to work with other than NIH. And Dr. Leota was that. So he's working with one of the smartest minds in the space, so I like his chance of success. If they're moving forward with them beyond the studies at George Mason, I have to think they found something. And if it happens to be a therapeutic or an antiviral, I think it's going to be very valuable to not just one, I would say every major pharma company out there, because who wouldn't want to buy it or partner with them?
Yes, I mean the upside. So the upside is, again, just based on the GW comp, the upside is it's like 100. It's essentially the stock has 100x upside potential. There's a path to that 100x. This is
really is.
What I find compelling about it is that, okay, here is what needs to happen to get there. But why is it? Do you think? And I asked Guy this before. Maybe you can give your answer. What is it that investors are missing? What is it that they don't understand about TBP? That if they did finally it clicked, what is it missing that the stock would be $10, $20 tomorrow?
I think a lot of people miss how close they are, and how deep their pipeline is. Everyone keeps asking them when you're going to be in revenue. They're not a cannabis company where you don't get any revenue, any sales until you're selling. They can generate revenue on licensing deals. They can generate on milestones. You watch some other companies receive, $500 million, $1 billion, $2 billion in, between upfront and milestone payments on a phase 1, phase 2 trial. These guys have two phase 2 trials ongoing in the United States. The only 2 THC trials in all of the United States. And one of them happens to be going head to head with, with an opioid. And, I can't imagine a bigger trial out there. I think this is, results that the FDA is going to be very interested in. I believe that there's going to be, much bigger demand on those results and eyes on it than people will ever admit to. So as soon as they move forward, I believe on their Reborn trial against morphine, I think that is going to be immediate. Remember, this is a head-to-head trial, so he's going to be able to release those results pretty imminently after he does it. This isn't a 6-9 month trial where he has to do a double blind. He doesn't get to see the results to the end. He's going to get to see those results all the way along. And if anybody remembers, in Canada, he already did it and finished a phase 2 trial. So he has a very good indication of whether this drug is going to work or not. So I don't think he went and spent another $5, $10, $15 million worth of shareholder money to finish another phase 2 unless he was pretty darn confident this phase 2 was going to work. So I'm very interested in the results on head-to-head against morphine. I think it's going to be incredible if we can find it. I think it'll be great if you can find an inhalation product that's safer, that avoids first pass metabolism and doesn't damage livers. I think that's an excellent piece. So just those alone are material, and I think we're 30, 60, 90 days away from Guy sharing those results.
Okay. You said 30, 60, or 90 days is what you think?
I do.
Okay.
I think there's a real chance they're in Q2. They're in trial, and I'm going to say from start to finish, within 7 to 10 days after starting a trial, he knows if it works. People know immediately.
Oh yeah, because either you feel pain or you don't feel pain, right?
That's right. It's not you're not measuring Alzheimer's where it's did it the margin for error or the margin for measuring them is really, really tough. This is a real simple one. Would you rather wait 1 to 2 hours from the time you take an oral pain relief for cancer for it to give you pain relief, or anywhere from 30 seconds to 5 minutes to receive pain relief? And I think people are going to choose the safer and the quicker route. I know if something as simple as an Advil. I know if I got a headache, I want the extra strength that I want. The quickest dissolving one possible that'll get into my system. So I think that's where he's going to win.
Okay, and so essentially, the benefits of TBP's kind of the pain relief part is that it's faster acting. In other words, it's not, instead of being an hour or half an hour, it's more or less immediate.
That's right. Typical cancer pain, the way I understand medications are between 1 to 2 hours for pain relief once you ingest it. So, he's talking a matter of minutes.
Minutes.
And,
okay. And this is
also with a much lower dose. Because he's able to get it quicker in a direct route, he's able to do a much lower dose, which also is better on the liver. Okay.
And this is inhaled.
Inhaled.
Okay.
Yeah. So almost like taking a puffer if you have asthma, it'd be very similar.
Okay.
How quick your asthma relief is when you take a puffer. In this ventilator, like in the exact same situation, there's a reason why he's after this, and from a lung standpoint. So I think his inflammation products are excellent. His pain, and if you look at his last press release, they've also expanded into HIV. You know what I mean? So I don't believe he's just looking at sepsis. You know what I mean? I think there's going to be probably 10, 15 other indications that they're going to try with George Mason, and I think he's going to try and tackle other indications. Once he gets approval on one, I think he'll expand right across the board and go after 5, 10 other indications. So can you imagine if something as simple as a natural plant or a synthetic version of it is able to provide people relief on pain, relief on cancer? Those are pretty impressive. So yes, there's risk 100%, but there's the upside on this deal is absolutely incredible if he gets even one of these things moving forward and does one JV deal.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons. One of the things I like about TBP from my perspective is with our kind of next super stock platform, the idea is things where like the odds. I mean, every stock has risk, right? Anything you do in life has. You open a restaurant, it has risk, right? You never know. So we want things where the odds really are stacked in your favor, where you have high probabilities, and the upside is you got this exponential upside.
He's late stage.
Asymmetric is, excuse me, I'm using more. It's asymmetric. I mean, look, you're betting 20 cents to make $20 basically.
That's right. So when you look at it today,
I mean,
he's late stage. He's there on 15% of the money, maybe 20% of the money that GW has spent, and if he moves one of them forward, you have to understand the depth of his pipeline with 4 or 5 deep pipeline drugs that are potential $1 billion plus drugs. One approval is going to validate the rest of his pipeline. So what is the rest of the pipeline worth once he gets one through? So it's it's not just about getting the one through, because he could easily then JV it or sell it and dividend out that money, keep the royalty on it, and then use that to fund the rest of them. And then the company's worth an absolute fortune. So I know he's close. I like him. I respect him. I believe his team. He's got some of the best people in the country. As you mentioned, 12 years of data and research with Dr. Melanie Kelly out of Dalhousie University, one of the more respected universities in Canada. They didn't, 12 years of data and research. They have a pretty good idea, early on in the studies if it works or not. I don't think you spend 12 years on something and it doesn't work. So when I look at it, I think they've de-risked it dramatically, and I believe the results coming out here in Q2 could really open some eyes.
Yeah. So again, there's three things. One is that you have that, asymmetric upside. Basically you have this 100x upside, right? It's pretty much like you said. It's been more or less de-risked, to as much of an extent as possible. So you have a decent probability of this being, of them, achieving this success, and it's near term. Number three is the timeline, because I mean they're getting. You're saying 30 days, 30 to 90 days is when
That's
you
right. I believe he'll be
see that inflection point.
That's right. I think you'll have the first results back potentially within 90 days on a head-to-head trial with morphine. And I think he could be in a situation where he has the first patient injected in the world, with a drug to save their life from COVID. So, it's not just COVID. I mean, COVID's obviously a game changer alone if you find it for
So
that.
the COVID drug, the COVID indication is really what? That's like a placeholder for sepsis, basically.
It is. It's a door opener. It opens the door to other inflammation indications for sure. So I think he's very close on a couple of those. And take it away, when you talk about risk, he's already been very clear and indicated they have one product that's moving through the final approvals in Canada. Like it'll be on the shelf in Q4. So when you want to talk about a early stage or pre-stage, like he's entering revenue in 2021.
And that's what that market is. What, 80 million? He said that's
80 million. So it's small.
It's,
but that pays the bills when you're burning cash on other stuff.
Right.
And in the biospace, you're always burning money until you got something on the shelf or you've monetized it. And I think he's very close to a monetizing event.
Okay, so I mean, I'm sure like you've talked to like, I mean, who you've talked to other, like, I don't know, either biotech analysts, people in the business. Who have you talked to that's kind of understands the space? What's their perspective on this?
It's funny you say that. I definitely have introduced Guy to a few people, and I've asked some questions as well. And some gentlemen, whether it was from, someone as simple as Bruce Linton. Bruce was the first one to say to me, he goes, Sean, they're moving stuff through regulatory approvals like at an impressive rate. And what they're doing and what they're working on, if this moves forward, he goes, they're going to get a serious payday. He goes, there's a real opportunity here and an opportunity. He goes, and I like Guy. He goes, I would actually really like to see him, move this forward and advance, the medicine within the space. So Bruce is just one example, someone that
Bruce Linton.
Yeah, he there's not many people that Tetra isn't on their radar. I remember Tetra has a deal with Canopy for their Mighty Medic, which is storage and Bickler product. So their supplier of their inhalation product, the device, is actually Canopy.
Do you think that maybe like the market in terms of, I think the audience for, do you think because maybe Tetra kind of got lumped in with the cannabis stocks instead of being a seen as a biotech or pharma stock?
That was for sure part of it. I think initially part of their investor base as well was a typical cannabis company, stock, and all of a sudden it's a pharma stock. So very tough to understand. I think definitely misunderstood. If they were to come out today as a clean shell and doing a new RTO or an IPO on the NASDAQ, I think they'd be trading at 10 times what they are today. At a minimum, I think they'd be able to come out fresh, clean. But through the transition and where they are, that's why the stock's where it was. Trading on the venture for a number of years, trying to get people to understand biotech and pharma. It's a bit tough. I don't think the strength in the core shareholder base was there, and I think that's why companies like GW-Pharma and stuff are further ahead. So, mind you, they've been at it a long time. They've been at it a lot longer, and they spent a lot more money. So, if Tetra spent a little more time and a little more money, there's the potential payday for both the patients and the shareholders. I believe is incredible.
Okay. Sure. How many shares do you own of Tetra, if I may ask?
Quite a few, actually, over the years. I've accumulated a lot.
What's a lot? Are we talking a couple million? What are we talking about?
More than that. And I've had a lot of friends, a lot of family, a lot of people I care about that are in the stock. So it's one that I think is going to be a material win for a lot of people. And you're going to have to have patience, and you're going to have to respect the science. I don't think if anybody digs deep and understands they're real, they're not a pump and dump. They're working on something that is potentially life changing for a lot of people, and how close they are to major catalysts. I don't know any other company today that's in 2 phase 2 trials that's trading at $60 million market cap. Canadian, so it's less than that on the American side. So One of those trials move forward. It's more than a 10x just on that. Like that would only take it to $1.70. Like, that's actually ridiculous. But and he's very likely, and I do believe he will come out early with some initial results. I think he will indicate to the market very quickly on his head-to-head trial against morphine. And if he does, and let's say that's Q2, or even if it's early Q3, what happens in 30, 60, 90, 120 days if a company with a $60 million market cap comes out and says, I'm able to demonstrate safer, quicker results than morphine with my patients?
It's a multi-billion-dollar valuation overnight.
That's right. And if they come out then and say, our product works on COVID, I've now injected the first ever soluble cannabinoid in the world in someone's arm, and I saved their life from COVID. And now I'm going to test it on sepsis. Pretty sure it's not 60 million market cap at that point. I think the upside is exponential, and I would love to see that for the employees of Tetra, the shareholders, and the patients.
Okay, Sean. Okay, on that note, I want to thank you for sharing your perspective, and would love to have you back on.
And for your support of both Tetra and over the years, Skylight. Yeah, I think it's great. I think you've done a great job, and shining some light on them and giving them a chance to see those two CEOs a chance to explain their story.
Fantastic, Sean. Thank you, and thank you everybody for joining our live stream today.